Hey folks, Phil Reames here. Welcome to another edition of our interview with industry leaders. We've got a great interview for you today geared towards a particular segment of our audience, and that's federal workers in general and postal workers in particular. Now, it's no secret that the Postal Service is trying to save some money. So there are several postal facilities around the country that are in consideration of being closed. Several of them are right here in our local area. So as you can imagine, we have some postal employees that have some somewhat urgent questions about their retirement system. Now, for those of you that don't know, the federal retirement system is really a different animal from most retirement programs. That's why we've always recommended that if you're a federal employee, you really ought to make sure that you're working with a financial planner that has had additional training specifically in the federal benefit system, because it really is different. And we here at Reames Financial have had that training, so we can help you with those questions. But, you know, as we continue our quest to bring great information to you from the best and the brightest in the industry, what I'd like to do today is bring Ann Vanderslice to our microphones. She is a federal benefits expert based in the Denver, Colorado area. She's also the author of Fedtelligence, The Ultimate Guide to Maximizing Your Federal Benefits, a great book. Ann, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Phil.
Good, good. Well, before we get started, the folks, I guess you're going to have some fun. You get to see some great basketball this weekend. You must be excited about that.
I am really excited to see 3 great basketball games. And the good news and the bad news is my team is no longer in it. So I'll be just cheering for good basketball.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, as we get started here, because I know you got stuff to do, let's talk first a little bit about how did you get into the federal benefits arena? How did your career take that turn?
Well, literally, Phil, I fell into it because, as I always say, nobody grows up wanting to be a retirement planner to federal employees. It's not really on the top 5 job list.
Okay.
But I had worked in corporate America for 20 years, and so when I decided to go out on my own and get into financial services, I worked in the long-term care arena, and the federal government opened up their long-term care program in 2002, and they would sit people in a big auditorium and show them a film. And they thought somehow they were going to buy long-term care insurance that way. And so I knew that wasn't going to happen. And as a result of that, I built a database, started marketing to federal employees, and really made some inroads and discovered what really a great group of people it is to work with, and then went back and spent 6 months learning their benefits.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, you know, with all the budget constraints and things going on, there are a lot of changes in the world in general. Are there any major changes that you're seeing in the federal system right now?
Well, we know that there's going to be a new retirement system for anyone hired after January 1st of 2013. So that doesn't really affect anybody who's already been hired. But there are really some pretty significant proposals in front of the House of Representatives right now that would have a direct impact on federal employees. Things such as freezing their pay for the next 3 years up through 2015. They've already had it frozen since 2010, so they're feeling a little stifled already.
Sure.
And I think a big change is the elimination of the FERS supplement. So right now, if you're in the newer of the 2 retirement systems, you retire before you're 62, you're eligible for a supplement from OPM until you're eligible for Social Security.
Right.
They would like to eliminate that. It has not passed yet, but it's under proposed legislation right now to eliminate that. And if that happened, it would happen at the end of this year. So there'd be a whole lot of people trying to make decisions before the end of the year to get grandfathered in.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, as we look at the federal system, We have in addition to the post offices in our area, we have a big federal center over in Battle Creek, about 20 minutes from us, home of Tony the Tiger and Kellogg's and all that. And my son happens to work over there, so we have a lot of postal employees plus a lot of regular federal employees. So I guess my next question is, if you are a newer employee to the federal system, say 5 years or less, what are the key things that they should be looking at right now earlier in their career to maximize their benefits?
Well, first of all, federal employees have really a wonderful set of benefits. And for many of them, they don't realize it until almost it's too late. And so if you've been with the government less than 5 years, that's a perfect opportunity for you to really kind of dig in and say, okay, what are the benefits that are here and what can I use to my advantage? For example, of course you're going to want to probably take their health benefits because we have the federal government paying 72% of the premium and you paying 28%. That's a pretty good deal.
Sure.
You're going to look at least their basic life insurance coverage. The other coverages get fairly expensive fairly quickly, but you're going to want to look at what you need for you and your family in terms of life insurance and then see what Fedtelligence can cover and what you need to get on the outside. But most importantly, you're going to want to pay attention to your thrift savings plan. Because if you're in that newer system, the thrift savings plan is designed to be 1/3 of your income in retirement. That means you have a responsibility to save there. You also get a 5% match. If you put in a 5% contribution, you're basically going to double your money right there. That's a great deal. You don't want to leave that money on the table. More importantly, we now have the Roth TSP that will be rolled out in the second quarter of this year, 2012.
Wow.
So the ability to be able to save significant sums of money without any earnings limit in that Roth TSP will be very important.
Sure. Can they split their contributions between one side or the other? I mean, between the Roth and the regular? Very
yes,
cool.
So they can make a determination about how much goes into the traditional TSP and how much goes into the Roth side.
Okay, very cool. Now, what about people that are at the other end of their career? They're a few years from retiring. They're looking at wrapping it up. What are the things they should be looking at?
Well, really, you're going to look at those same benefits, but maybe with a little different scope. As you look at them, you're going to want to make sure that you're in the best health plan. And often at the end of your career, what we see is that you've been in the same health plan maybe your entire career. We know 60% of federal employees are in Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they never even think about changing. And possibly if your children are grown and you don't have any health issues, you might save money and do better in a different health plan if you just took the time to look into that. It's also a great time, if you've been in the group life insurance in Fedtelligence, to take another look and say, ooh, am I paying too much for this? Do I need some permanent life insurance, and do I need to go someplace else for that? And of course, this is the stage when you're going to start to think about, how am I going to create income from the money I've saved in my TSP? So in the early part of your career, you're worried about, okay, how do I put it in and how am I going to allocate? Now, as we get to the end of your career, we're worried about how am I going to distribute it efficiently.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier long-term care. Is this when people should be looking at it, or should they have looked at that much earlier in their career also?
Typically, as they get near the end of their career, I always tell people, if you're in your 50s and your children are out of college, and people ask, what do my kids being out of college have to do with long-term care insurance? Well, there's a chance you might have some disposable income if your children are out of college. And once that happens, then you can take those dollars and put them towards long-term care premiums. So absolutely, this is a perfect time to look at long-term care insurance.
Okay, great. Well, as I had mentioned, some of the postal facilities in our area may be on the chopping block. So we have a lot of postal employees that are sitting on the fence right now. Are there, and if I remember correctly, their system is slightly different than a regular federal employee. So are there any things that the postal employees in our audience should be considering?
Well, it's always tempting when you hear about a buyout or a closure to just think, all right, this is it. This is my sign that I should retire. But I always encourage people who are looking at a buyout or the closure of a facility to really have your benefits run and know those numbers. Find out what the difference is it's going to make monthly for you if you retire now, if you take this buyout. Because ultimately, a $25,000 buyout isn't going to make or break your whole retirement. We're talking about you may end up with about $17,000 after the taxes from that lump sum. And so it's really not that lump sum that's going to make or break your retirement. You want to be sure that you don't miss all the other things you should be looking at for retirement anyway.
Okay, great. Now, as we wrap this up, tell us a little bit about your book and how that could help the federal employees in our area.
Well, after 10 years working with federal employees, what I found was that there are a series of questions that are pretty consistent. I hear over and over, and sometimes I think that I almost know them before they think to ask them. So one of the things I thought would be helpful is if they had a resource guide. Now, we know there's the Federal Employees Almanac, which reads like a very, very dry dictionary or encyclopedia.
Sure.
And sometimes it's hard to get answers from there. So the point of Fedtelligence was to tell a federal employee's story, to have stories inside of there of people just like them who have questions just like they do about what's the best way, what's the best day to retire, what's the best age to retire. Can I get a little extra boost if I work until I'm 62? What should I do with my thrift savings plan in retirement? What about my health insurance? Do I keep it? How does it work? And so really in a very common setting, easy to read, it's designed to be so that you can sit down and pull out one chapter at a time and say, all right, I need to know about FEGLI. And in about a half an hour, you can get a really good education about how FEGLI works.
All right, very good, very good. And if anybody in our audience wanted a copy of that book, where would they get that?
The easiest way to get it is to go to Ann Vanderslice.com, www.annvanderslice.com, and right on there it's available. You'll see a nice shiny cover of the book, and you'll be able to just click on that and purchase it right there.
All right. Well, folks, those of you that are watching this video in our newsletter, look right below the newsletter in the video, and I will have a link in that newsletter directly to Ann's website so you can order the book if you want. Well, Ann, we'll let you get going so you can go have a lot of fun, and we certainly appreciate you being with us today, okay? Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me, Phil.
You're very welcome. Well, folks, that wraps up another edition of Interview with Industry Leaders. I hope you found the information helpful. If you are a federal employee or if you know a federal employee, please forward our newsletter to them. Let everybody else benefit from the expertise that Ann brings to the table. And if you have particular questions about your own situation and you'd like to work with somebody local, give us a call at Reames Financial. We'd be glad to sit down and help you. As I mentioned, we have had that additional training. So, folks, that wraps up another edition of Interview with Industry Leaders. Until next time, protect your wealth.